Today on The Necessary Entrepreneur, we welcome David Gaz. David is the founder and creative director of the Bureau of Small Projects. With over 20 years of experience marketing Fortune 500 companies and major brands, the team at the Bureau of Small Projects leverages their expertise and relationships to build quality websites, mobile apps, and print collateral for nonprofits to increase donations, to help small businesses who are making a difference convert visitors into customers. David Gaz also directed the critically acclaimed documentary, Kindness is Contagious, a film all about being nice and the benefits of it. During the conversation, David and I talk about hiring people smarter than you, firing clients from hell, augmenting customer greatness, that 5-star reviews don't necessarily mean perfection, and that making a series of small changes over time yields the biggest impacts. We also talk about catastrophizing, simplifying processes, and that luck is behavioral. Stick around as David tells us the one thing that all successful companies do similarly. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Hey guys, today we have an awesome guest, David Gaz, and I think by the end of the podcast here on The Necessary Entrepreneur today, I think we're going to know him as Gaz. I just have a feeling that it's going to be this much fun. So hey man, welcome, but I want to give you a quick intro here. The intro is, you're a founder of many ventures. I use a word countless because when you've been doing entrepreneurship and doing adventurous things as long as David's been doing them, we call them countless. But you've worked with big brand name studios along the way, including you have, while we're going to sit and talk about today, your most recent award-winning documentary is Kindness is Contagious. And so I'm pumped about this maybe hour to hour and a half long conversation about that, and then this Bureau of Small Projects that you've created. So let's do a deep dive on Kindness, Bureau of Small Projects, this endless entrepreneur, and then let's kick it off with the background behind you is like half warehouse office and half yellow background with a smile. So welcome, David. Welcome, Gaz. What's going on with the smile behind you?
Oh, Mark, thank you for having me on your podcast. You've done your research, I see. The smile behind me is a poster for Kindness is Contagious, a film that I produced and directed years ago, not maybe 10 years ago, so it's not quite so recent, was widely distributed and started my whole latest venture of the Bureau of Small Projects. I used to be a partner in a firm that worked exclusively with big brands and Fortune 500 companies. And a few years back, bear with me as well, this will kind of come around through the course of the meandering conversation. But
let's go. Here's where the meandering will take us. It'll take us also from you being born in Michigan, living in Paris, France, living in San Francisco. You're a world traveler, so meander all the way through all that stuff.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. But anyway, a few years back, I used to be a partner in a firm that worked exclusively with big brands and Fortune 500 companies. A majority of my career has been working with big brands and Fortune 500 companies. And politically, we were in a time very much like today where people treat people kind of poorly, that they aren't very nice to each other. I'm starting to think it's always been that way now. But I was being very frustrated at work. People were treating each other poorly. Our clients were being kind of aggressive. And I stumbled across this magazine article in Scientific American by these two guys, James Fowler and Nicholas Christakis at Harvard University, who had scientifically proven that kindness is contagious. Now, being in branding and marketing, we love anything viral like that. So I was immediately intrigued. And then I thought, hey, maybe this could solve my problem with people being nicer to each other. So I used the resources I had at my disposal, which were considerable, to produce a feature-length documentary. I was lucky that James Fowler agreed to be on the documentary, and then he introduced me to all these fabulous people like at Stanford, Yale, all these really smart people, all centering around kindness. And the thing that came from that is that this whole nice guys finish last idea is totally bogus. That nice people, on average, make more money, believe it or not. They have better jobs, which makes sense because who hires jerks? Better relationships, more friends, which in today's social environment is super important for business. And then they live longer. That nice people actually physically live longer. So being a serial entrepreneur, my first business was an ice cream truck when I was 16 years old. Doing this all my life, immediately I thought, gosh, I wonder if people are using these tools to help their businesses succeed. So I interviewed a bunch of Silicon Valley startups, green energy companies, nonprofits, healthcare organizations, people whose day job was making the world a better place. And I started to get jealous. My day job was sucking every last penny out of people's pockets so they could buy designer shoes, clothes they don't need, electronics that'll be obsolete, in weeks. And I thought, what could I do to make my day job making the world a better place? My son was born right around this time too. So when you have kids, you start thinking about what you hand down to the next generation. And what I came up with was, what if I teach these people how to suck every last penny out of people's pockets, but put it to use for good, for the benefit of mankind? And with that idea, and this is where the meandering comes around, with that idea, I created the Bureau of Small Projects as an incubator within my old company. And the idea was that, we did massive multi-million-dollar projects. So the people that we wanted to work with, I wanted them to know that we care. So hence the name, the Bureau of Small Projects. And then the interesting thing was, like about a year into this, my business partner came up to me and said, "Hey, David, you're spending all your time with the Bureau of Small Projects." And it was fabulous. I mean, I absolutely love my job. And he said, "Why don't you spend some more time with our real clients?" And he even did the air quote thing. And I laughed and I said, "Well, maybe you haven't looked at our balance sheet lately, but it seems we're now financing your real clients." And we got into one of those founders fights that I'm sure that, you and your viewers are very familiar with.
If we're all kind, we all just get along so well.
Yeah, I wish it was the case. I wish it was the case. But yes, in principle, we should all be harmonious. And I think you can disagree kindly, which is what we wound up doing. Awesome. And we decided to split the company into two, where he took the quote, the real clients, and I took the Bureau of Small Projects. And
why do we have this distinction about he gave the real clients, right? So why do we look at the world that way? I guess we could go down some deep dives of philosophy and all that, but why do just big businesses, traditional businesses, the businesses that we see that maybe make us money, why do we have this distinction in our minds that there's real clients and then everything else that's small is just like the other stuff? Why do you think that is?
That's an absolutely fabulous question. I think part of it is branding. What we do is back in the days of like branding's all based on science and evolution and kind of behavior, human behavior. And I think it probably goes back into the caveman days. And this is one of the theories with branding and familiarity. And back in the caveman days, when you'd go out into the savannah and you'd see a creature sitting on a rock, people would immediately run away because they weren't sure if it was going to attack them or if it was something that's just, like a water buffalo or something. And then the next day they'd go and they'd see the creature on a rock in a day, and days pass, and again and again and again. And if that creature doesn't attack them after many days, in their mind, they say this creature is familiar and safe. And I think with branding, well, I know with branding, but I think with these big brands, to answer your question, is people are very familiar with them. So they feel that they're comfortable, they're safe, they're tried and true. However, what they forget is every single one of those big brands used to be a small company at one time. And Apple famously starting in their garage, which was true. And every single big company was a small company at one time, an entrepreneur, some guy with an idea. And I don't want to discount his. I told you I'd talk your ear off.
Yeah, let's go.
I don't want to discount him saying the quote real clients because I think everything has its value and I think everything is important. But I absolutely love that because personally, Mercedes was one of our clients and Mr. Mercedes is long gone. And so we're stuck with, like these underpaid MBAs, Harvard's, Stanford MBAs, they're going to work for Mercedes for the brand. Where with the Bureau of Small Projects, we work with entrepreneurs, the people with the vision, directly with the owners, the CEOs. Some of them are not necessarily tiny startups. Some of them are well funded. The passion. Yeah. And I love that passion. And I love that he made that distinction because that distinction allowed me to just pull the trigger and work exclusively with the folks with the passion.
So you're all about kindness. I think that's an easy statement to make.
Absolutely.
And so I have some questions around that, but you're all about kindness. And it seems like the underpinning of the Bureau of Small Projects, it seems like that came from the Kindness is Contagious movie. It's almost like the company was created out of that unintentional.
I would argue to say intentionally because it was, when we started interviewing all of these organizations that were making the world a better place, I immediately thought, geez, I want to work with these people. I just love it. I love their vision. I love their passion. And then certain people on our team enjoyed that as well. And so then we started to make the natural split where, we always want to encourage, being an entrepreneur, you always want to encourage people to follow what they love and do what they love doing. So the people that wanted to work with the founders and the entrepreneurs gravitated towards the Bureau of Small Projects. And then the people, I think it's natural when somebody gets really good at what they do, they want to chase the money. They want to go, ooh, these big companies have all the money, so I'm going to go work with them. But what I love is it opened up white space for us because we got the people who had spent their whole career working with the big brands. They don't need another one, we have big brands that reach out to us all the time. And we generally only work with them if it's an entrepreneurial project. We just wrapped something for Canon for Hercules, which is an AI startup within the Canon Group umbrella. But we aren't so interested in working with Canon because, if you look at our website, we've got logos all over the place. Does the Canon logo really add anything to that? And so we got all of those people that had phenomenal level of experience, didn't need another checkbox on their resume, and wanted to just apply what they do to places where they could just reap the rewards of working with fantastic driven people.
Was the name Bureau of Small Projects, was that an intentional title stamping your brand on what you were going to do, who you were going to be? Was that an intentional name?
I've got 2 answers for that. Another excellent question. The name was intentional. It came directly from the movie because one of the things when we were doing the movie, the premise of the movie was maybe thousands and millions of small acts of kindness will have more of an impact than a few big ones. And so I started to explore the notion of the small. I came across this notion of the aggregation of marginal gains. And this is something that's been somewhat publicized to entrepreneurs. It was a cyclist, and I forget the guy's name, I should know it, but a cyclist in England, and England had never won the Olympics before. And they didn't have the resources that some of the more successful cycling teams had. And so he thought, well, what if we just make some small changes along the way? And he started, small changes. Let's take a few pounds off here. Let's train a little bit differently. And they won the Olympics gold in every single part of their team. And the notion that he came up with, the aggregation of marginal gains, was maybe these tiny little 1% increments when you total them all up. Kind of like, what was the movie Moneyball, was kind of the same principle.
Compound together, and it's almost incalculable, the growth that you're going to make, because if you just think about all these one percentages, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be that significant, but you put them all together and it is.
And they're easy changes.
Yeah.
And small businesses can make these changes. You don't need these massive budgets to make 1% changes, And so that's kind of the root of the name, the Bureau of Small Projects. However, the real reason that we're called that is because we test everything. The Bureau is all about testing. And we had, one of the names was Zentropy, which I really liked. I thought it was poetic. Didn't resonate with people. And we tested all these other names. And then the one that resonated the most was the Bureau of Small Projects. And interestingly enough, almost every single time somebody reaches out, and I hate the name, by the way, but every time people reach out, the vast majority tell me how much they love the name. Yeah, there's something to it that people resonate to. Switzerland is a client of ours, and that one was a hard one to turn down, even though they're humongous. And they reached out and they said, hey, we've got a branding project we'd like you guys to work on. And I said, well, we're the Bureau of Small Projects, right? And you guys are like a country. But they said, hey, we just love what you do. We don't care. But I should throw that back at them.
What Switzerland's one of the most fascinating countries in the world to me.
Oh my God, yes.
They don't participate in wars. They have neutrality all the time. There's just massive, deep-rooted culture. It seems like they've maintained borders in the midst of all these wars and things. They have some of the most incredible mountains in the world. They're still hardworking. They alter a little bit in the society the way that I like. Listen, I'm a non-apologist for capitalism, because I think that capitalism, there's a bunch of great things that has improved this world. With technology, with science, with just all these things we're doing to move stuff forward. Are there some negatives? Yeah, we can point out there's positives and negatives about everything, but Switzerland's a little bit too social for me, of a social country, right? You kind of stay where you're at, but it seems fascinating. So I bet you know more about it than me, since this is a podcast that I get to run and get to derive the conversations. I'd like to know what you think makes Switzerland special that maybe we don't know about, since you worked on a marketing project for.
First of all, I share your passion for capitalism. I'm a hardcore capitalist. People in California always assume that I'm a Democrat. I like a lot of the principles of the Democrats. I also like a whole lot of the Republicans, but I have my stark criticisms of the Republicans as well. So that diehard independent, absolutely. Yep. I would put knowing the Swiss people, knowing the culture, not profoundly, but a working relationship with the people and the cultures. I think that socialism, capitalism is nuanced. My thinking of Switzerland, I'm going to go right back to kindness is contagious. I think they're an incredibly kind people. I love the way that they stay out of wars. If every single country in the world was like that, we'd be living in paradise. And then I want to point out the most telling thing about Switzerland and capitalism and all of that is they have everybody's money. They've got, they're doing something right. They've got mountains, they've got chocolate, and they've got everybody's money.
So you're trying to make an argument that they founded kindness centuries ago, huh?
I don't know. Founded kindness. The data suggests we've always been kind. That deep down inside, every human being, or the vast majority, there's some people that are just wired wrong, but the data suggests we've always been kind. One of the things that was really cool with the movie is we went into the evolutionary principles of kindness. And as we talk, you'll know that science kind of is a foundation for everything that I do as well. But evolution created us as a kind species. We're what's called a superorganism. Human beings work collectively. We're not the lone wolves that we like to think we are. Even entrepreneurs, we're not these super independent thinkers that we like to imagine we are. We're part of this larger organism called the human race. And what keeps us together, much like ants, termites, and naked mole rats, is that we have this bond of kindness, that we do nice things for people, they reciprocate and do nice things for us. This makes us cooperate as a species, and that allows us to do things like build Empire State Buildings and put people on the moon and explore the solar system and eventually the universe, all because of kindness.
How do we include kindness and interweave that with really hard things that we have to do with, at times, people around us that aren't willing to do what's necessary to accomplish these hard things with us? This is a reality of entrepreneurship, right? So if you have people maybe that are lacking a work ethic or lacking a tenacity or lacking natural problem solving or lacking a don't take no for an answer attitude, and they're just some folks that don't keep up, it's tough to be kind at times. So how do we wrap kindness around someone just not doing their part with us?
Dan, Mark, you have excellent questions. Absolutely excellent questions. One of the things that I want to, that I learned and that I profoundly believe is kindness doesn't mean weakness. And sometimes making those hard decisions is the kind decision to do. When we take on new clients, when we have employees, we like to kind of say it's all about the fit, finding the right fit. And I think with the people we work with, the people we interact with, the people in our lives, it's all about the right fit. And I think when people seem to be unkind, like my firm belief is kindness underpins everything. And when people seem to be unkind, it's mostly because the fit is wrong. And I think when you make those tough decisions, we practice the kindness and the tough decisions around kindness on both employees and clients of ours. And the employees that we've let go because, which you could call being unkind, some of them have taken it very difficultly. I think they're better off for it because it allows them to find a better fit somewhere else. And we try the manner that we let people go. We try to be very nice about it and very kind about it. We don't want to be mean, brutal, belittle people. And then the same with clients is I think anybody that's an entrepreneur, they've all got the client from hell. And I never try to categorize those clients as it's their fault. I think it's about fit. And so we're very lucky. We have 3 to 5 people every single day that reach out to work with us. And I knock on wood, I don't take that for granted whatsoever. But what that allows us to do is be selective about who we take on as clients and who we work with. And so we actively fire clients that aren't a good fit. And I think that it's for the best. It makes our team happier because nobody likes they won't give their all for a client that they don't respect or get along with. And then I think it makes the client better off because they're not getting subpar work anymore because it's hard to get enthusiastic working with people. And they can find somebody they're a better fit with, and then they may not be the client from hell when they find the right fit. I don't think that they're bad people. Clients for hell are bad people. I think it's circumstances. It's the shoes that they've walked in. We don't know the shoes that they're walked in. And I think by firing them, we allow them to find the better fit.
Boy, this is a juxtaposition because when I'm thinking about it, I'm just thinking about all these experiences in my own life. Mm-hmm. Operating companies when, whether it's 3 or 5% of the time things don't go well. I don't know the percentages. Mm-hmm. You can be the best human being and run the best company, and it just doesn't go perfect all the time. That's life. And so if the intentionality is to be kind, the other person doesn't always receive it that way.
Yeah.
And isn't that tough? Maybe it's not.
Yeah, I sorry about cutting you off there. I feel you're touching on something that I feel I put a lot of thought into and I feel passionately about, especially around the difficult, challenging clients. And it's weird when you project kindness and then you have a difficult challenging client. And then it almost takes you down a path where you want to behave unkindly. You want to be, just say some things that probably shouldn't be said. And one of the things going down this path that I thought about is when you screw something up, and I think, yeah, and I think people have a tendency to project, and when they do the sales process, to say, oh, we're the best of the best. We never make mistakes. We never screw things up. But humans make mistakes and they screw things up. And I think that's where often the conflict arises with your difficult clients is then people start finger pointing. Hey, you screwed things up. Hey, I want a discount because you screwed this up. And then everybody gets angry, and then they say the things that they're not, that in retrospect they wish they hadn't said. And one of the things that we kind of, I wouldn't say we've always been this way, but we came to this philosophy is we are 5-star reviews everywhere on the web. 4.89 or something. We got a few bad ones in there, but an awful lot of reviews and an awful lot of 5-star ones. And some people say, oh my God, they could be bogus or fake reviews. None of them are. But you judge that for yourself. But I think what got us there is we tell people and firmly believe it that we're not 5-star reviews everywhere because we're perfect. We make mistakes as much as anybody. We're human beings. We've screwed up some stuff royally. We're 5-star reviews because we always make it right. And sometimes that making it right costs a lot of money. We got into financial difficulty at the beginning of this time last year. And it was because we decided to fire all of the clients that weren't a good fit with us. And we did it all at once, and we refunded their entire retainers, every single one of them. Even if we were like 90% finished the project, we just refunded all their money. And then we said, listen, we just don't have we weren't unkind at all. We said, we just don't have the capacity to do your work justice right now. We'd like to refund all of the money so that there's no hard feelings or loss on anybody's part. And we took an immediate financial hit, because it can be a pretty, some of our projects are significant. But ultimately, I think it led to better relationships with them. It made our team stronger, happier. It sent a message to everybody. And then it came back 1,000-fold afterwards.
What culturally happened? You don't have to go here, but I think you're a pretty transparent guy. What culturally happened to cause that big decision to be made?
We had one particular client, and it was a really cool fashion company in France. And I used to live in Paris. The French have kind of a unique outlook on life that I've learned to embrace and I love, but it makes them kind of challenging to work with. And this one particular client was very abusive to people on our team. I personally checked out the work that they had done. I thought was fabulous. Everything up to the standards that we represent, and our personal standards of excellence, which I feel are very high. But it was like just an artistic difference. They just didn't like what they saw. We thought it was fabulous. There was a gap between what each of us believed. So that immediately told me that there's a problem with fit. It wasn't poor quality work on our end. And then they had asked, we wanted to fire them earlier on. We just kind of highlighted that and said, we just don't see things eye to eye. And they begged us to keep with them. And I think that there's a psychological thing that happens when you try to stop working with a client. It makes them kind of want you or desire you more. And I think that might have been what was happening, but they kind of begged us to keep on and said, we'll work through this. And so we went on for about 6 months. This was a very late stage project with them. Wasn't getting any better. Our team was miserable. All they did was say, oh, good God, I can't believe I have this call today with them. I want to do anything but have this call with this particular client. And so I was looking at how it made the client feel, how it made our team feel. And then I thought, gosh, we just have to do something about it. And then I started thinking about putting a list of other clients that could be in a similar boat. And then I thought, for the kindness for the people on our team. And then I also thought, hey, it's the fit. It's kind for them. Um, and then we just did, I think we should have done it more gradually in retrospect. It wouldn't have had the financial, we seriously had financial difficulty after doing that.
But you're sitting here standing strong and building it back. See, there's the alternative to that. Like, you wouldn't be this further along the reinvention process and smiling more now if you wouldn't have done it that way, though.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And as an entrepreneur, my whole life, and I'm no youngster, one of the things that I've learned or that's often told but has been reinforced, is they say entrepreneurs have a very high tolerance for risk and pain. Yes. And one of the things, interestingly, is we work with tons of entrepreneurs. The thing I love most about our company is that we work with entrepreneurs. And people often ask me, what do successful businesses all have in common? And
Tell us.
And there's only one thing that I can, and it directly relates to the question, that I can tell, is they don't give up. If you own your own business, you can never fail if you don't give up. But the Silicon Valley term pivot, if something's not working, pivot, try something else. But the only way you can fail as a business is to quit.
Why do you think that's such a difficult idea to wrap our heads around as humans and go all in with? Why do you think? I mean, is it any deeper than this stuff about fear and the unknown and having faith in the outcome while doing the temporary work? Like, what? Why is that? So if you know it, in all these successful entrepreneurs, I just deem success as a business that just keeps going, right? That's in business tomorrow again. Like, that's success. And so why is it so difficult for the people that don't have this mentality and attitude to buy into? Because you used the word entrepreneur before.
Yeah.
And so it's essential for somebody to be successful inside of a company with these entrepreneurial aspects too. So if we know that that's a truth, why is it so tough to sell and adopt?
I think there's two reasons people become entrepreneurs. I absolutely love the questions you're asking me. I think there's two reasons people become entrepreneurs. One of the reasons is because they want the money, they want the glamour, and I laugh when I say the glamour because entrepreneurs know there's no glamour to being an entrepreneur.
In our mind it is. In our mind it's glamorous.
I think we're sold entrepreneurship nowadays. We're sold the Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, how the founder story. And I think that, the Jeff Bezos, how they started out from nothing. I think the American dream kind of helps sell us entrepreneurship. And I think there's people that buy it but don't have it. And then I think there's the other type of people that become entrepreneurs, that they're just born an entrepreneur. They fight with their bosses. They can't hold down a job unless they own their own business. People that just their entire genetic makeup makes them an entrepreneur. And I have an interesting story that drove this home when I was really young, when I first moved to Paris. After college, my first job was in Paris. And I'll get into that later if you want, if you don't get tired of me. But we were sitting at dinner, and one of my close friends in Paris, Manu, his father owned this real shishi car dealership in Versailles. And Versailles is kind of like the Beverly Hills of France.
It's kind of the southwest of the city, isn't it? Am I correct about that or no? Am I wrong?
Sort of. Let's see. Yes, absolutely southwest. I had to kind of visually do the geography. And very close to Paris. It's like, like half an hour by train from Paris. It's very close. And he owns a Shishi, Ferrari, kind of, Maserati car dealership. And he was having dinner. We were having dinner with my friend, his father, who owned the car dealership, the Shishi car dealership, and the father of Manu's wife, who was French aristocrat. And in France, they very much have a class system. You've got the aristocrats and then the working class folk. Um, and the aristocrat said he just failed in his business venture. And he was musing over a cognac and lamenting over the possible reasons why his business failed. And he said, the real reason is we were just undercapitalized. And Manu's father kind of laughed. And a little backstory on Manu's father. He was an immigrant from Spain. When he first came to Paris, he lived under Pont Neuf, like slept underneath the bridge, a homeless guy sleeping under the bridge. Then he went to work every day as a mechanic in a garage. And then he eventually saved up enough money. He didn't have rent costs because he was sleeping under the bridge. And he saved up enough money to buy the shop, turned it into an auto dealership, and built it up into the one that was the Shishi one in Versailles that we know today. And he was just kind of smiled and laughed and said, no, that's not why you failed. And the guy's like, well, then why did I fail, Mr. Know-It-All? The successful businessman being kind of condescended by the aristocrat who just failed in his business. He said, there's only one reason. You didn't have customers. That's why you failed. If you have customers, everything works itself out. If you have customers, the banks will lend to you. If you have customers, you can raise your prices, do whatever you do. But every successful business needs customers. Capitalization has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's like a rich person's problem. I think that's why a lot of rich people who start businesses fail, whereas the guy that can't fail is the one that always succeeds.
Yeah, maybe it's the grit. Maybe it's the, the not going to quit, the not take no for an answer. Problem solving is a silver lining in all this, right? Because an entrepreneur has to be a high-level problem solver. When you run into a problem of not having customers, you got to figure it out. If not, you're out of business.
Yeah. But I don't think the high level entrepreneur even considers that. It's like it's the fail. What was like some coach said, failure is not an option.
So this idea of some entrepreneurs are just born, and that's a tough one for me to wrap my head around. It's not a disagreement that I have, but it's a tough one because there's a lot of people in this world that don't believe they're capable of certain things. And what I've realized is whether we're naturally capable or not, it starts with a belief, is what I've found.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we accomplish the things that we believe we can. And so how does an entrepreneur, a future entrepreneur at 16, at 18, at 22, at 24, at 26, maybe a retread entrepreneur at 50 or 60 or 70, do they just have to try and then fail to prove they're not?
Well, I think that I don't think that there's a disconnect because I think you're absolutely right. I do believe that an entrepreneur is born, but I don't think that, that a successful entrepreneur is born. Anybody can become an entrepreneur. All you have to do is quit your job and say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. But I think the successful ones, they're born that way. Some of them don't know that they're born an entrepreneur, and maybe they are not an entrepreneur. Maybe they get fired all the time. They don't know why they're fired all the time. Maybe they're in a situation they're miserable at their job. They have to do stuff they don't want to do. But I think that underlying, they're born an entrepreneur. I think at any stage that they decide to become an entrepreneur, they can be an old guy to do it. They can be 15 years old. I think that when they pull the trigger, that's where the birth, all of the stuff that gives them the grit, that gives them the tenacity, gives them the unrealistic expectations of success and all of the hallmarks of successful entrepreneurs.
So what does David Gaz do when the plan doesn't go to plan?
I catastrophize. I've been married now for 25 years to the most wonderful woman you could possibly imagine. She has supported the craziest ventures because, as we know, entrepreneurs, they do some really crazy, illogical, silly things. Some of the businesses I can't really talk about on this podcast even, but she's stuck with me through every single one of them. And
Inevitably, since you gave me a little pause, I'm going to throw this in here. Inevitably, what I found out is it's not that every plan doesn't go to plan. It doesn't go to plan in the time frame that all of us entrepreneurs had it planned to go in.
correct. So back to catastrophizing things.
Yeah.
So I went down the meandering path about my wife because I want to highlight that she's the most awesome wife you could ever imagine. We've been married for 25 years now. We went to a marriage counselor at one point after I put $1 million of our own money into a film, Not Kindness Was Contagious, another one. We lost it all in the black hole of the Hollywood, investors' money too. A lot of people pissed off. We were so stressed out. We went to a marriage counselor. And this was one of my life lessons that directly relates to the business failure. We were going through some stuff, and I said, honestly, I feel like all the time, I've had millions and millions in the bank, and I still feel 2 steps away from being a homeless person. And the therapist, marriage counselor, said that. And I said, and he goes, well, do you actually think that you could become a homeless person? And I said, I'll probably figure it out. When you've had businesses go to hell as often as they have, and I think every single entrepreneur has always had many businesses go to hell, or their current business has gone to hell many times, you always kind of figure it out. And so he said, what you do is you catastrophize. And him telling me that now when I get stressed out when something goes to hell, I know in the back of my mind, I go back and I say, I'm probably catastrophizing. It's probably not as bad as I think it is. However, catastrophizing is a powerful tool because if at every moment you think the business is going to go to hell, even when it may not be going to hell, when you catastrophize, you prepare for that and you prepare for the worst. And it almost never happens, but if you have that mentality, you're always ready when it goes to hell.
Catastrophize. That's a new one. That's going to be in a lot of the content we put out. I can already tell. So you have this desire to provide Fortune 500 level experience and programs for your agency clients. How are you truly capable of having a Bureau of Small Projects customer that's not Fortune 500, that the chances are they never will become? Now, I know all Fortune 500 companies weren't at one time. Mm-hmm. They all started small, but it's Fortune 500 because it's the top 500.
Yeah.
There's millions of small businesses. So what's your approach to take that level of significance, of budgets, of billions of dollars moving around, of that infrastructure, and how can you truly take that feeling and that experience to a small business customer of your Bureau of Small Projects?
Okay, I'm going to tell you some secrets that you may want to use in your own businesses as well. So every single one of the things, I want to go down a little path, and then maybe if you want to remind me or bring me back as I stray back to the original path, because I think it's an important one. What we do is every single person in our team has a lot of Fortune 500 big brand experience. They're all experts and they're all specialists at their particular thing that they do. Somebody that's designing a logo is not doing strategy. Somebody that's coding a website is not designing the website. They're all specialists and experts with Fortune 500 experience at what they do. And with that, what's really beautiful is most of the time the small businesses that you're talking about, they don't have access to this level of talent because most agencies or freelancers that service the less than Fortune 500 group of people, when they start to get really good at what they do, they immediately say, I want to cash in and go to the Fortune 500 companies. So there's a heck of a lot of competition at the Fortune 500. The folks like we have that we decided to go the other way, we found entrepreneurially a very open, like just kind of a free for all playing field. And I love that. Now, one of the things that we had to do is we had to reconcile folks that are used to these massive budgets to spend. how do we apply that stuff to these smaller organizations? When we talk about branding, one of the difference between a small company branding and a big organization, Fortune 500 company branding, is a small company thinks logo when they reach out for branding. The large organization thinks strategy with branding. You look at Ford, they've got 10 million different logos. What makes Ford is strategy. What makes Coca-Cola? A bunch of different Coke logos you've seen everywhere, right? It's strategy that makes Coke, and Ford, and Disney, and Apple, and all the big companies. So how do we apply that to these small, not yet or not Fortune 500 companies? We have to simplify the process. And so we have teams that they do that for these large companies. But when you're working with large organizations, generally it's all about billable hours. And so we're throwing a lot of stuff at the wall. We're trying to, and I hate to say this, but everybody that I think both sides knows this is how it's done. Everything's designed to generate billable hours. Now, when you've done this your whole career, the creatives get really frustrated because they see the good one and they know the good idea. But oh my gosh, the client doesn't like the good idea, or we really have to sell them hard to get the good idea out there so we can win awards. However, with the smaller companies, we just go straight to the good idea. We don't do a million options. We pick 5, and then we tell our client, pick the one they kind of sort of like within the 5. And then they just get the good stuff. So we make a much more efficient process out of it. And then I want to share a little trick with you that we do that exemplifies, I think, some of the tactics that we use that aren't ideas, but they're methodology. When you go to a McDonald's, when everybody goes to McDonald's, they all order a Coke. And why do they order a Coke? There's beautiful different, you've got mug root beer, you've got Fanta, you've got Country Time lemonade, all these delicious beverages, but everybody orders a Coke. And they do that because Coke has seeded the marketplace with billboards, with Super Bowl ads. Everywhere you look, there's an ad for Coca-Cola. So by the time they get to McDonald's and they say, hey, what would you like as a beverage? People don't even think. And that's I think the foundation of advertising. It goes to that Savannah thing with the creature that's on the rock that they grow to trust after a while. And that's just what they see at Disney, Apple, all the big companies do that. Now, how can a small company do a Super Bowl ad? They can't. But what they can do is we're in this digital age that's made the world ultra competitive, but it's also made it the golden era for entrepreneurship. So what they can do is they can do what we call remarketing ads, right? You run Google ads to get the word out. Somebody's looking for real estate in Ohio. They Google, your name comes up underneath the zip code that they're looking in. We drop a cookie on their computer, and then that cookie, and realtors don't do this. Usually people that are selling tennis shoes and, walking sticks, hiking sticks and stuff like that do remarketing. And what remarketing is that, when I go online and I look at a pair of shoes and then I'm surfing, looking at YouTube, I see ads for those shoes everywhere. Now, organizations like your own and many of our clients, especially B2B organizations that typically don't do remarketing, what we can do is they visit your website. We drop a cookie on the computer the same way that the shoe company did. And then we can deliver them ads with just your logo on the ads. Bright background so people notice them, or a weird picture so people notice them, with no call to action on the ad. These are pay-per-click ads. So if there's no call to action, people generally don't click on them. However, they've been to their website, they like what you do, now they're seeing your ads everywhere, like Coca-Cola. And so it's kind of a billboard advertising strategy, Super Bowl advertising strategy for the small entrepreneur in the digital age. So a client that sees that, they don't understand the mechanism behind that. And so they're, they're surfing the web. They're thinking, oh, I'm going to buy a condo in Ohio. Oh my God, they see Pivot everywhere, and it's a catchy name, so it sticks with them. And then when they finally made the decision, who are they going to come and see? They're going to come and see Pivot.
So Contagious is already made, right? That's the expert in the marketplace. That's the expert in the space. And by default, there's credibility, there's trust, there's all these things around it.
Yeah, our guiding principle behind branding is identify what it is that you do differently and better than your competitors, and then scream that to the world. And it's a lot harder than it sounds. It's kind of like the game of Go. It takes me a second to explain that. But what we try to do with everything we do in our little tricks, like the one I just explained to you, is we invite competition. We want to identify or articulate what it is that you do differently and better than your competitors. You know, when they go to your website, they already know what you do, so you don't have to explain that again. You have to tell them what you do differently and better than the other folks they're looking at, right? And then we just scream that out to the world. It's the key to marketing. It makes it so easy. And then with these ads that I'm just telling you about, is if you're just everywhere they look, they see these ads with your logo and maybe a slogan that talks about what you're different and better. We invite comparison with kind of a manipulated environment that they choose you when it comes to choosing that.
You know what would be the most fun marketing and branding campaign for David and his team? Would be being hired by Kindness to brand that.
Have you been to our website?
Well, you know, I may have just pulled a little nugget out of somewhere.
We were hired by Kindness. Yes, kindness.org. One of our old, actually the founder of kindness.org even invested in Kindness is Contagious before we were even a company.
So you feel your story of your business is a story of solving real world problems. What's that mean?
I don't really look at it that way. I hate to contradict you. I think everybody's a problem solver. When I was in school, they told you you're a problem solver. I look at we're just advocates. I suppose the real world problem that we are trying to solve is what makes your organization different and better than your competitors. But I suppose in that sense, yes, we're problem solvers. That's the fundamental problem that we're solving. But
that's one of the biggest real world problems, because we all believe we have this. Entrepreneurs wouldn't be continuing down this path of being in business every day after the next if we didn't believe that we had something better, whether we're right or not. But we believe that we're doing it better, have a better widget, something. And so our biggest real world problem is, how do we let everyone know about that?
I think that's the easy part nowadays, right? Because there's so many. The way we kind of describe our process is learn about your competitors, learn what they do well, learn what they do poorly, and then learn what they do well, because you have to be, as you mentioned, just as good as they are at what they do well. What they do poorly is where opportunity lies, and ultimately that what makes you different and better than your competitors is in the poorly part of that. And then you have to articulate that. Now, I think, like I say, everybody in the world, I believe, is kind. I think every organization has a little something that they do differently and better than their competitors. And then if it's absolutely nothing, it's price, right? But price is something. That's a brutal place to fight, so we like to look for something else other than price. But once you've identified that, we call that the creation of the package, right? Identifying what it is you do differently and better. That's your brand, not your logo, not your colors, not your fonts. What you do differently and better is your brand in today's marketplace. Not your story. Story will enhance the brand, but it is that different and better is your brand. So that's the package. And then all you have to do, and it's by no means easy, as you mentioned, to come up with that, but then the marketing's the easiest thing in the world. All you have to do is get it out in front of people. And there's never been more places in the history of the world to get stuff out in front of people. I'm a huge fan of paid advertising. A lot of people think I'm going to do social because they think it's a cheap way to do that. And what they don't take into account is their time. And it's time taken away from something else, or they're paying themselves for their time to do that. Whereas paid advertising, you're only paying for clicks. And so you're guaranteed to have it in front of people. I mean, there's never been any form of advertising or communication in the history of the world with a guarantee that you will get in front of people. We're so lucky.
Is there an example of a brand in your mind? Like, we have to scan all the millions of data points in our brains from the time that we've been alive, but is there a brand in your mind that has pulled off? Because you mentioned price, because price is a reality in the marketplace. Some brands are, I mean, there's things called dollar stores. I mean, right? Have you seen anyone, maybe Costco's the answer to this, who is one of the tip-top values in the marketplace, like a value of quality, combined with one of the lowest prices? I mean, because isn't that be an elite company and brand?
I want to tell you a story. I love where you're going with this. A friend of mine, Axel Abrun from Topos Partnerships, they're social anthropologists that they do kind of advanced. I don't like to say the word focus group, because focus group is a very specific thing, but they do surveys. They do at a very deep level for folks like the MacArthur Foundation. We like to say the smartest people in the world work with the Bureau of Small Projects. Axel's one of those smart people. And I hope I don't get him in trouble with this, but he's a very provocative thinker. And the answer to your question was something that Axel talked to me about. He said Walmart. And he said Walmart, on the surface, a lot of people think, oh, they're destroying communities. They're, they underpay their employees. They've got these lawsuits, and it's all this negative press. And he said that's why they're one of the greatest brands in the world. Because even though it's negative press, every fiber of what they do communicates that we will do anything to bring you the lowest prices possible. Anything. And it made me really rethink, there's always a dichotomy of and
you get what you're paying for and all this stuff and
the kindness thing and all of that. Although I do believe that they aren't as unkind as people give them credit to either. I think people are fundamentally deep down kind, and I think they're helping a lot of people, even though they get some negative publicity.
Yeah, I mean, here's the reality is when I walk into a Walmart because sometimes it's the most convenient place. It's open late for me to buy a thing. And so, but when I walk in there, I grew up financially poor. I know that there are people like that in this world that still haven't found their best life yet. Mm-hmm. They haven't had the right people around them. They haven't been inspired. Maybe they haven't been educated, didn't have the opportunity of the people around them, whatever it is. If you go into a place where price is competing, you're going to find people that don't have as much money. Mm-hmm. I look at Walmart as a place where the people that right now in their life that don't have as much money, they can still go and buy things. And
they can get jobs. They can buy things. Yes. They've got an RV. They can park it in the parking lot for free.
Just because that's where they're shopping now doesn't mean it's a place we're always going to shop. But if you can go in there and buy daily goods for $3 and $4 and $5 versus going maybe to the expensive local place, right? On some of these expensive brands, you can get read the ingredients. Mm-hmm. Read the ingredients of some off-market brands and compare them to some of these brands that we're paying 2 and 3 times. That person in this world right now that doesn't have as much money, they're able to experience the same type of product for less.
And that's why I say kindness is very nuanced, because there's many facets to it. And Axel argues this, that they are being incredibly kind because they're helping out people that need it. The only way that you can provide that is you have to cut salaries or something somewhere. But at the same time, they are offering opportunities, folks, and jobs and stuff like that. It gets spun on both sides of that. But you made me think about another entrepreneurial story that's always stuck with me. If you don't mind me doing a slight segue, then we can get back to that.
Absolutely.
I was in San Francisco. I had the good fortune to be in San Francisco during the dot-com boom. The center of the world. I think it was probably like what the Roaring '20s had to be like. I mean,
is this early 2000s?
Yeah, earlier than that. It was the 96, 95, 96. I was at the invention of the internet. One of my best friends in the whole world was one of the founders of Wired magazine, which put me smack in the center of the universe at the time.
Yeah.
And it was a crazy time. I've never experienced like that. It was like people handing out $1 million bills on street corners. My wife and I made a fortune in San Francisco. Then what was really interesting, had a huge loft south of Market. My neighbors were investment bankers and all these fabulously rich people. And then 2000, it all came to a halt. Everything crashed. I was reading about one story about a guy, pets.com, I think it was pets.com, and he was flying from New York to San Francisco. When he was on the plane, his accountant informed him that he was worth $100 million. And when he landed, he was worth $0. And I never thought that you could lose so much money so fast until I experienced that in San Francisco. And then, so pet.com went under, and then the San Francisco Examiner wrote this story about, and the front page of the story was CEO of pets.com is working behind the counter of Starbucks. And I felt immediately really sad that they would take this guy that's accomplished so much and they'd humiliate him by showing him as a barista behind Starbucks. However, in my mind, I said, that's a guy that will never, ever fail, that he does what it takes. And I look at the Walmart thing and the people that work at Walmart. Remember, that doesn't have to be your end. You're an entrepreneur. You need a job. He lost $100 million and he's like, crap, I don't have anybody that can help me out. He goes to Starbucks and he does a minimum wage job. I imagine that he's upgraded significantly since then because, once you've done it once, you can do it again. But it's an opportunity.
Yeah, I've had plenty of jobs as I was coming up, started working at a young age. I personally had plenty of jobs that were actually worse than working at Walmart.
Mm-hmm. Myself included, absolutely.
Yeah, and so every one of those jobs, the approach to teach people, whether you're working at a fast food restaurant, like I've worked at those, or you're working at a retail place like a Walmart or working in a mall that used to be, or if you're now working in a call center somewhere or working in a factory packaging goods, working logistics, is that whatever job you have right now, just do a really good job. And if you do a really good job, it's going to prepare you for another opportunity. And you're going to continue to compound these opportunities. And when you do a good job, you do it a little bit better than your peers around you, you're seen. And that's what's special about a capitalistic environment. Managers see you. When you do a good and better job, you're valued. You have more worth in the marketplace. And so if you're doing a good job at whatever menial job you think you're doing now, if you just put your head down, you're going to wake up in 3 or 6 months. You're going to get a raise. Somebody's going to look at you for promotion. Someone's going to walk in and experience your level of service and offer you another job. And so we're thinking about this too big. I mean, we can have these 5 and 7 and 10 and 15 and 20-year goals, but those are so far off. You're going to accomplish those by just doing a really good job at the thing at hand right now. That's what I found.
Yep. I want to, you made me think of another story or another situation. When I mentioned the beginning of the Bureau of Small Projects, when I got into a founder's fight, I took the Bureau of Small Projects and he kept the original company. One of the things that I had was a non-compete agreement in my contract. And so I couldn't take any of our existing clients with us. I could take the team, and because I was a partner, I was financially very secure, but I had to find all new clients. There was a handful that were kind of crossover that I could take with me, but not the bread and butter clients. And what we did, because I had the team of really talented people and I was fairly well funded just because I, partner, golden parachute and all that, is we started building $1,000 websites, $10,000 websites for $1,000 is what we did. We didn't build $1,000 websites for people. We built $10,000 websites. We were going on Craigslist to find clients. People that couldn't afford a $10,000 website, we were doing them for $1,000, but they were all the quality. We were doing the absolute stellar quality of work. At the time, we built a portfolio doing that. Then they started telling their friends. They started telling their friends. Some of those clients are still with us today, and are the price of our work. We're the Bureau of Small Projects, not the Bureau of Cheap Projects. But they're still with us today. They get the word out message. When you do quality work, everybody talks, like you mentioned, whether it's your manager, your clients, in every facet of your life, whether you're in sports. Relationships are everything.
Why is that? That's a big statement, but so definite that we make it and we share that idea. Why are they everything?
You're throwing me a softball here, my friend. Kindness is contagious, the fiber that makes us put a man on the moon. That man on the moon was never a guy with a single vision. It was somebody had to smelt the metal for the rockets. They had to create the liquid oxygen that goes inside it. They had to come up with the technology for the computers, the software. Somebody had to organize a whole bunch of people to get together and put the whole thing together on a launch pad. There's probably, I'd say, 1 million or maybe even 100 million people that went into throughout the ages to invent the technology that could put a man on the moon. It is kindness that is the fiber that connects us all. And that's the answer to your question, is it's kindness.
We're sitting here having this conversation in 2024, first quarter. I'm sure you have your long-term goals, but what are you excited about right now that maybe we wouldn't garner just from looking at your business or from what you do? What are you excited about?
Mark, I got to tell you, I love the questions you're asking. So I am not a goal person whatsoever. I have no goals. I'm a path person. I love going down a path and looking at what presents itself. I think that opportunity comes by going down the path. Ask me about luck. My next film's going to be about luck, and I want to talk to
you. Hey, David, what about luck?
Well, no, let me finish this question, then ask me about luck when I'm done. I told you I'd talk your ear off.
So what are we excited about?
So going down this path, and I've been doing this path for a while with no goals whatsoever. Just let's do an interesting path. And the thing I'm most excited about is AI. I don't think it's going to be this destructor of humanity. I think it's an augmenter of humanity. Canon, Hercules, with the AI startup within Canon that we worked with. And we got into AI pretty early, actually. That's a whole nother story. But the tagline and value proposition that we came up with for Hercules is augmenting human greatness. And as a default, augmenting customer greatness through that. And I truly believe that's what AI is going to do. It's not going to be Terminator. It's going to augment what's already good within us. Now, it's going to be brutal for some people. They're going to lose their jobs for sure. But if they're open and and they're ambitious or even just curious, they're going to find new jobs. This happened at the turn of the century, or at the 2020 with the whole .com thing. Digital started to take away people's jobs. At the time, I was a photographer. I was a fashion photographer in Paris. Came to San Francisco, a star, internationally known fashion photographer. Coolest job in the world. 25 years old, fashion photographer in Paris. I got paid $10,000 a day to take pictures. I mean, it was crazy.
We could talk an hour and a half. We'll stay on this. We could talk an hour and a half on what made you great at that, because you don't make $10,000 a day in a space that's filled with a lot of people without being great. So we could come back to that, but keep going on this path.
Yeah, it goes down to the different and better. But what was really interesting at that time is the reason you got paid, actually it fits right into this trajectory. The reason we got paid as photographers, paid so much as photographers, people who were outsiders thought, oh, it's the talent, it's the creativity you bring to the table. The real fundamental reason is it's a business. I wasn't in fine art photography. I was fashion, which is essentially product photography for businesses. And they paid us for that because it was film. And you're in the studio. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars for the models, the stylists, the studio, all of the, the Lamborghini that you bring in, all of the stuff that creates this photo shoot. You have to do it in one day, much like making a movie, right? You have all this stuff that comes together in one day. They paid us to make sure the film came out exposed. They didn't pay us for our talent figures in and all of that, but the real reason they paid us so much.
10,000 is cheap then.
Yeah. It was we were an insurance policy. That's the reality of it. And then the proof for that was everything went digital. And all of our salaries, we all lost our cash cow. Everybody lost their cash cow with that. And it was tough. That's why I don't do photography anymore. I love doing it, but I couldn't support my family. I couldn't support the lifestyle that I like doing photography anymore. But what happened is tons of super creative, talented people got their opportunity because now they go into the studio. You see right away that the film's going to go out because it's on the screen. You don't have that unknown that they were paying us for. The people that rose to the top were the most talented of the bunch. And in AI, I see the exact same thing now. The old guys, when I was doing it, I was just a kid, but all of the people I was working with, I think because of the pay scale and a little bit of luck. That's why ask me about luck later. But I was hanging out with all the old guys and they're like, oh, digital will never replace the nuance of film. And then I watched when that photography went first, color separators, typographers, all of the people that did the support to that, they all lost their jobs to computers. Then the film industry, that's why I segued into film, because I was like, crap, I lost all my money in photography, or lost my livelihood in photography. How hard could me making a film be? Turns out very hard. But I heard them saying the same thing. Oh my God, that digital will never replace the nuances of film, and all gone now too. AI, exact same thing. It's going to replace all these jobs that were dependent on this manual labor, old-fashioned way of doing business, but it's going to promote human greatness. It's going to augment all of the things that are good within ourselves as humans, not as laborers. I think it's fabulous.
Hey, before we get to the luck thing, when I said you must have been great, you said good and better.
Different and better.
Different and better.
Yeah.
Go into that.
Okay, so as a photographer, let me pull this off the wall. I guess we aren't showing visual, but this will help you.
No, we're going to show visual. It'll be out on YouTube and everything. This will be everywhere.
Oh, great. So I would have dressed better if I knew that this was going to be.
No way, man. We want to see people who they are.
Oh.
No, you should have dressed first, so then you can talk about all your success and say you can come from anywhere and look any way and look what you can do.
Oh, great. But anyway, this picture that I showed you, so this was the type of photography I did. It was all about colors. I had a patent on it. It used the layers of saturated film, and I put layers on top of each other to get this color. And what was really interesting is the different and better is nobody was doing anything like that then, right? And we were at the cusp of this digital revolution, which ultimately killed my whole career. But, hey, like businesses, careers, if you did it once, you can always do it again. Like a business, if you have one successful business, you can always do another. And same thing. And so it was kind of, I think, because it was a unique way, it was defining the way people were thinking with digital and bright colors that now we take for granted. Before that, they just weren't doing stuff like that. Everything that I did as a photographer was focused around that. I think that's where I understood branding, and why I love doing branding today is because what I promoted was what made me different and better than other photographers at the time.
That's awesome. If someone could articulate just that idea in business, even an employee being a salesperson, if they could articulate to the customers, the people they're engaging with, that they're selling to, like, hey, let me tell you what makes me different. Let me tell you why I do it better.
Yep. It's the key to everything. A lot of people, branding folks, talk about the brand story. And I think brand story is important, but it also is BS. The initials BS. And I think that's an outdated way of looking at branding. People who, the world's changed since we did branding like that, right? That was, I think, a localized branding approach. But now we're in what's called a winner take all economy, which basically means why buy locally if I can buy from anywhere in the world? And with that, we've got more competition than we've ever had anywhere in the world. When you buy something, do you really care about the story? If that's the different and better, maybe.
I think only wealthy people do.
Yeah. Growing up poor, I like to think that, yes. And I think that it's an easy sell for an agency because it flatters the client. Our clients go, ooh, yes, this is all about me. This brand is all about me, 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 me. So it makes it an easier sell for me from an agency. But I think the real reason people buy stuff is because it's different and better for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Not different and better than anything in the world, but I have a particular need, and this product is different and better for that need that I have.
And sometimes that's not as much money in my pocket, and that's my need.
Yeah. And yeah, if there's nothing else you can come up with, your selling price is different and better. You're the cheapest. And that's definitely a different and better. It's just a brutal place to compete.
Yeah, it is. And I think with competition being so much more difficult now because the market is so much larger, and now you have multiple people, multiple X competing in the same spaces, that's tough to be a competitor and an entrepreneur because you got to raise your game even more while also being kind, right, Dave?
Mm-hmm.
But it's best for consumers.
It is, and I think it's best for entrepreneurs as well, because the one thing that we're in the golden age of entrepreneurship. It's never been easier to start a business. All the legal stuff, you've got LegalZoom, you've got all these things that cover that. The pandemic, it was happening well before the pandemic, but now you don't even need office space anymore. The vast majority of the world, whether they even know it or not, is virtual now.
Hey, be careful. I own office buildings, David.
Yeah. Well, I think they will be repurposed someday.
There's a lot of them in, I live within the 275 loop here in Cincinnati. I'm actually geographically in northern Kentucky, but if you look out the windows out of our studio, it's downtown Cincinnati, the buildings. And there are two of the tallest buildings in the city right now are becoming apartments.
Yeah.
They were office buildings.
And we need that. That's what the need is now, right?
It'll revitalize the core of these cities when COVID presented a tremendous, you're living in California. You've seen it firsthand.
Yeah. Working remotely, it's wonderful for entrepreneurs. It's wonderful for humanity. And then the office building, it's the same thing as my photography, right? It was a cash cow at one point, but they're still there. Just adjust it to something else. You got to adapt. It's pivot, right?
What it's made me do is it made me put in nicer gyms, full service gyms that were included with the tenants. We're redoing a deli right now. That's the best deli we've ever had. We're redoing our training and theater rooms, which our clients get to use for free, into just state-of-the-art theater rooms and presentation rooms where content can be made. So it's making us be more creative to compete and win, because there's still going to be offices. There just aren't going to be as many of them. There's still going to be offices. They're just not going to be as big for companies.
Yeah. But, it's funny when I'm going back to San Francisco at, the dot-com boom in San Francisco. And it was the first time I had ever heard this term. However, photographers, we've been doing this forever, was live work. And photographers always lived in their studios. They had these cool studios. They looked really cool. Like, everybody has parties at these studios because they're really cool spaces. And, they're usually pretty big spaces where most people's living spaces were smaller. But live work. And I think that, now with the whole virtual work, virtual office, all of that, it's just made for live work now.
Yeah. So what about luck?
Well, it's funny because most of the hardcore entrepreneurs, they say, oh, I did it all myself. Luck had nothing to do with it, until they think about luck. I had this client who, we have a lot of biotech clients. And there was this one guy who sold his biotech company for $350 million. And he also taught at Harvard University. And he said that his students would always, every single semester, somebody would raise their hand and say, how do you sell a biotech company for $350 million? And his answer was, luck. Luck is like being hit by a freight train. It only happens when you are standing on the tracks. How you sell a biotech company for $350 million is you have to start a biotech company.
See, I think that's, there's always ideas always need context. Situations always need context. And so I think, luck's a big part. But the important thing is, if you wait around in a world of inaction, waiting for luck to show up, it's probably not going to.
I disagree. Well, if you wait around, so
with inaction. That's what I'm saying. Waiting around with inaction.
So the next film I'm doing is going to be all about luck, and it's based on where the kindness was started. The origin was with James Fowler and Nicholas Christakis about kindness being contagious. The luck book, or the luck movie that I'm putting together, is based on the work of this guy Richard Wiseman. And he did one of the coolest experiments I've ever heard of or thought of even prior or since. He took 200 profoundly unlucky people and 200 profoundly lucky people. And he said, I'm going to figure out what luck is all about. And so he did a series of studies on this group of 400 people. And his conclusion was there's no supernatural basis of luck. It's all behavior. And this is why I think it's super important for entrepreneurs, is it's recognizing opportunities and then acting upon this opportunity. So one example is he asked people who were profoundly lucky, what do you do when you're standing in line at the supermarket? Do you talk to people? What do you do? And the lucky people, almost to a T, said, oh, I chat with the guy behind me. I chat with the cashier, I actually, weirdly enough, enjoy being in the line at the supermarket. They asked the unlucky people, what do you do when you're in the line at the supermarket? And they said, oh, gosh, I don't talk to anybody. Why do I want to put my misery on other people? I just keep my head down and mind my own business. Now, the lucky people said, yeah, I might be chatting with the guy behind me and say, oh, my God, I love Coldplay. And he sees a Coldplay shirt on it and said, I love Coldplay. And then the guy goes, oh, what do you do for a living? He goes, oh, I have a music studio. And then the guy with the Coldplay t-shirt says, well, I manage Coldplay. And you go, oh, really? He goes, yeah, we're actually looking for a local studio. And so that standing in line, talking with people at the supermarket is opportunity. Everybody you talk to is a potential opportunity. A lot of them aren't, but everybody's a potential opportunity. They interviewed somebody who won a lot of contests and won like a trip to Europe, a Mercedes, had a garage filled with flat screen TVs from a contest. And they asked the unlucky people, do you ever enter in contests? Do you ever win contests? And oh, God, no. Why would I do that? I lose at everything. Why even waste my time entering in these contests? And then the woman that won all this stuff in the contests, right, said, do you consider yourself lucky? And she goes, oh, gosh, no. I win all this stuff because I enter tons and tons of contests, right?
Which is the truth. They're both true.
Yeah. And that's why she's lucky, is behavior. Yep. They did this one experiment that was really cool. They took a whole room full of people. You may have heard this experiment, and it's Richard Wiseman that did this, is they had the both groups of people in a room, and they asked them to go through a newspaper. And they said, everybody that can count how many photos in the newspaper gets $20. And so the 5 minutes, 3 minutes went by, and half the room left and collected their $20. And then the other half was there and it took them 15 minutes, and they passed the 10-minute or 5-minute to get their $20. And then you look at the newspaper, and on the headline of the newspaper was, there are 473 photos in this newspaper. And the people that were lucky were the ones that just happened. They weren't like going into the minutia. They were looking for opportunity. And then they eventually noticed the headline. I think it was on a few other pages too. And they eventually noticed, they go, oh, walked out, got their $20. Lucky people tend to notice opportunity. It's behavior.
Yeah. So you're saying we didn't disagree.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's what's cool about luck is when it's behavior. That's why I'm dying to do this film. The thing about luck is it's behavior. You can teach yourself behavior. You can change your behavior. Luck.
people need this.
You can
This is a key idea that people need. So maybe you're approaching it with kindness. I'd probably approach it with a little bit more rigor and trying to get people to buy into the idea. And we can make an argument. Well, that's kind, Mark. If you can get more people to believe in this and buy into this, their life's going to be better. So that's kind. And so sometimes those things are required by force. And I don't mean physical force, but you have to show up in people's lives. I mean, because if the 80-20 rule is a real thing, if it is, if 20% of the people do 80% of the stuff, if it is, unfortunately, there's a larger segment of populations in every category that don't find success compared to others who do every category. Not just financial success, just probably success in being kind. There's probably an 80-20 rule there. And what we would find is that those 80% of the people need a little bit more convincing.
Well, and that's why I love the medium of film, and that's why I'm dying. That's why I did the movie about kindness. Kindness is contagious. Is I wanted to influence people's thinking and behavior, and film is a powerful tool for doing that. And then I think as an entrepreneur, that's the thing with the film about luck that I'm dying to do. Is it can change lives. Like once you understand its behavior, change your behavior, do these things, you will become more successful. You will become luck. You will bring luck into your lives. It's powerful stuff.
It's funny how you attract what you are, isn't it?
It's interesting that you mentioned that too, because one of the things of kindness is contagious. If I do something, it's scientifically proven that if I do something nice for you, you'll do something nice for 4 more people. Each of those people will do something nice for 4 more people, and so on and so on. Now, the notion of karma, right, comes along. And James Fowler in the movie said, I think karma actually exists. We can prove it. Because if you do something kind for somebody, then they do it for 4 more people, and each of those people do it for 4 more people. You're in this group of people, and then eventually they're all doing these kind things for each other, and it's circling back like tenfold onto yourself just by doing one act of kindness.
I've found in business, we're all kind of in a referral business. No matter what business you're in a referral business. Right? You are, I am. You don't have to sell something. If you perform at a tip-top level for one of your clients and they just think you hang the moon, they're referring you to someone. Right? And that referral is probably the best thing that we can ever receive, in my opinion. It's because your marketing isn't necessary. The brand isn't necessary. They've already been told what you are and what you stand for and who you are. There's no sales pitch necessary. And so I think out here in the world, what I found is when I do a really good job for a customer, or I show up in somebody's life and I really help them in a significant way in their life, the majority of the people, it's not reciprocated, and I'm okay with that. I'm not looking for it. The majority of the people don't give it back to you at that same level, but you're going to come across some people who do. And those ones who do, they usually do it in a compounded way that's worth 3, 4, 5, 10 times more than what you did for them, because they're so impacted by what you did for them, they give you so much in return. And life's just better that way. It just feels good when you do it.
I'm going to disagree with you slightly, but coming to the same conclusion. I think when you do that for everybody, when you treat everybody well, you do the $10,000 websites for $1,000. You do what it takes to keep people just to do the absolute tip-top best of what you can do. I think that everybody is going to talk about it to one person or another. Everybody's going to appreciate that. If you truly do the absolute best, there'll be some people that just, I don't know, something goes wrong or whatever. But I think that's part of the compounding part of it. Not everybody can afford to say, I'm going to, my friend Bob's going to buy an office building in Cincinnati. But maybe Fred's wife talked to somebody else and they talked to somebody else. And this one little thing, that kind of tipping point notion It all compounds. The aggregation of marginal gains, the Bureau of Small Projects. I think even the little things, when you do absolutely the best job you can, that it is heard.
So we're talking about elite level performance, right? Or no?
Yeah.
You disagree with that?
Well,
So
you do
that's
the best you can. I think you do the best you can. Not everybody's at elite level. Just always do a little bit better, right?
Yeah. What have I missed here? This is good. We're over an hour and a half in. What have I missed? I could sit here and whatever your cup of Joe or water or drink of choice would be. You're a guy that I could, because you have worldly knowledge and you have perspective on things. I'm interested in if there's something we left out, something you'd like to share. But one more question I had. This has felt more a conversation than questions, but in the beginning, you talked about that tough client, and they were in Paris. I believe they were French.
Yeah.
And you said that culturally, they seem to be different and unique, and that wasn't in the best way. What makes that? So I was at Paris a year and a half ago. Only spent a night there.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Spain. Went to Morocco. It was just a layover, but we went out in the city and experienced a few of the things. But you lived there.
Yeah.
And now you work with people. What's their approach? What's their mindset? If you said they're difficult, they think about things different.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They are difficult, but smart people are always difficult. I lived in Paris for 7 years. I'm a hardcore Francophile.
Because that's why I asked the question. Because I do think smart people are difficult.
Yeah, and the thing that struck me with Paris, right? One thing that struck me just in general is I think everybody should live in other countries, work in other countries, earn their living in other countries. Because the advice my father gave me when I went over there is don't go to Paris. Don't go to France. They don't like Americans over there. It is a bad choice. I forbid you to go to Paris. And when your father forbids you, what's the first thing to do is go to Paris.
Go to Paris.
I went over there and I didn't speak the language, but I wound up getting a job at an ad agency. This is before the fashion photographer, but in an ad agency. And I'd memorized one line. Je m'appelle David, est-ce que je peux présenter mon dossier? And my friend, the founder of Wired Magazine, was French. She was kind of led me down the path that got me to Paris. And I didn't know any other French. And one of these agencies, and my friend Eric had given me all of these agencies that he knew that I should visit. He'd set up interviews. And one of the first ones, like, oh, magnifique, and blah, 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 blah. And so I had to call my friend Eric, and I said, yeah, I think they offered me a job, but I couldn't tell. And he said, oh, they did. You show up at work on Monday morning, first thing Monday morning, 8 o'clock. And so I was like, oh, wow. And so I went there. They handed me a brief that was this thick, all in French. Nobody even expected me to speak French or speak English. Nobody in the office spoke English or very little. And I had to go home and translate the whole thing. This was before Google Translate. It was with a dictionary, word for word. I wound up speaking French. After like 6 months, I was reasonably fluent in French. I was shocked at how quickly you can learn a language when you have to. And I think that's part of the key. Like with business, the success is when you have to, it happens a lot faster than when you don't have to. And what it did is it opened up the world to me, because once I spoke French, they were the most delightful people in the world, invited me into their homes. I had a lovely time, life-changing experience for me. And it allowed me to actually know the people. And what I realized is they aren't much different than Americans. You know, we've got a bunch of really, really stupid, lazy Americans. It was a little bit unkind, but I love stupid, lazy people. But what I was going to say is that in Paris, France, no different, right? They've got this vast, massive amount of people that aren't the most, I shouldn't say stupid and lazy. I should say they're, I don't know, there's another word for it. It's not meant with a lack of kindness. But anyway, there's also the French, the thing with France is they've got this 1% of the population, and fiercely independent, uniquely something cultural. I don't know if it was Napoleon, the French Revolution, or what caused this, but they've got 1% of their population that is smarter than anybody in the whole world. When the airplane, there was somebody in France creating airplanes before the Wright brothers created it. We're Americans, were natural born entrepreneurs. We commercialized everything, but Henry Ford didn't invent the car. The Wright brothers didn't invent the airplane. Einstein didn't invent relativity. It was a guy named Poincaré, who's French, that did it. Now, they didn't obviously invent everything, but they've got this tiny percentage of intellectuals that are the smartest damn people that I've ever met.
So if that's the case, I don't believe it's in their DNA. Because if that's the case, there would be 1% in every country. It has to be a way, when you say they're smarter than anybody else, what's smarter? What's that mean?
It might be that they have to work harder. I'm not entirely sure with that, because I think there's smart people everywhere in the world. I think there was something about France that created this little melting pot, or this little, maybe it's because we talk about America being the melting pot, but France is in the center of Europe and Paris is in the center of France. And
do you think there's an anarchist silver lining running through some of them, that they just question everything? And then if someone questions everything, you might get a small little dabble of a few people that combine problem solving, competitiveness, drive, and commitment. That probably is going to make you compoundly solve problems and learn quicker. Just a quick observation and a possibility.
Maybe they catastrophize. They question everything. They critique everything.
But there's something that you saw. There's something that there's a small segment of people that are the smartest in the world.
Yeah, and let me preface that, right? The smartest in the world, I'm going to include myself in the stupid, lazy people category, right? Because these are people much, much smarter than me. I think it might be also my opinion because of proximity, like the people that I'm seeing. I think it might be that it's a central location where all these different cultures collide. And I think it's the collision of cultures that equal the smartness. I think it wasn't necessarily, I think it's France at a certain time period right now, or at the time. And it's also around a certain thing like culture and.
Yeah, I saw Steve Jobs say, obviously that guy was brilliant. If you read the book, there were moments where he wasn't kind. I think we can all agree with that. But he talked about, if you find, there's some really humble moments that Steve Jobs has had. And I just don't think we look for him because we're looking for the Steve Jobs narrative. And I saw a reel or something on social media the other day that he said, the reason why, it was this definitive statement, the reason why I'm highly successful is I went out and found the best in the world.
Yeah, and now I'm going to double down on the stupid and lazy. What I think stupid and lazy, maybe there's a little smartness mixed in there, because kindness is very nuanced. Nobody's 100% kind. Nobody's 100% evil or mean, myself included. But I think what Steve Jobs did really, really well, and I think he's the biggest promoter of this, is he hired people who were smarter than him. And I think as an entrepreneur, that's one of the key things that I've learned over many, many years, is always hire people smarter than you. He had a Steve Wozniak that realized all the tech. He brought a certain number of ideas to the table. And I think, but you can't do it all yourself. Hire people smarter than you. That's what he did. He had a very interesting story that I loved. I mean, the Steve Jobs, you should listen to YouTube. I know you probably do. The Jobs interviews, not what people say about him. So one of these interviews is one of the things we've struggled with growth with our company is that is not attracting clients. We've kind of nailed that part of it through the different and better. but we've struggled with growth. We've doubled in size almost every single year. This year, we just got on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies in America. And the thing we struggle with is people. And our mandate is we only hire people with Fortune 500 and big brand experience. Once we had that value proposition, our mission became clear. However, and people smarter than me, that's why I put myself in the stupid, lazy category, but I know how to hire people smarter than me. And Steve Jobs had this thing about when you put A-level, A players all together, right? They fight, they collide, they argue. And I think that's also what achieves fantastic growth, but it's a difficult environment to be in. And one of my favorite Steve Jobs stories is he said that there was this programmer, like old time computer scientist that lived down the street from him in Palo Alto. And Steve was just a kid, and he went over to this guy's house, and he goes, "Oh, Steven, come over here. I want to show you something." And he brought Steven into young Steve Jobs into his garage and showed him a rock tumbler. You know, those things that looks like a coffee can you put rocks in, or a jar, and then it turns on a wheel, and then the rocks bump into each other. He said, "Let's throw some rocks in here. We're going to throw a little bit of sand and grit in there, and then I want you to come back tomorrow." And Steve Jobs came back the next day, and there were these beautiful polished stones. And he said, that's what working with A players is like. They're going to bump heads. They're going to fight with each other. There's going to be grit and dirt, and it's going to be ugly. But when you put them all in the same place doing that, you come out with the beautiful polished stones.
And that's how dumb and lazy people can succeed big in life.
Yes. And I think a lot of the big successful people are in that dumb, lazy category. Another quote that I loved was, I don't know this for sure, but I think it's Bill Gates, is he always gives the most challenging problems to the laziest person on his team. And why does he do that? Because he knows that person will find the easiest solution to the problem. I thought that was brilliant.
It's an awesome way to end this. Hey, we'll tag as we put this together. I think it'll be out in a couple weeks. We'll tag all your social medias and websites. What's the best place at the end of this? Who knows? Maybe you have 2 brand new fans from our limited audience, but growing. I'm joking. But what's the one place that we should dive into you for the rest of the day after listening to this?
I don't know. One place I'd say we put everything on our website, right? That's like the repository. It's a little old school, but everybody uses a website. It's funny. I've seen technology come and go, but websites for some reason stick. So just Google any combination of small projects in Bureau, any order, any combination, we come up first. And that's where you'll find all of this stuff. There'll be links to everything else there. It's kind of the central place.
And if you're going to Paris, send David an email and he will be your virtual tour guide.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's my favorite city in the whole world.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. This was awesome, man. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for having this conversation about being kindness, because I agree with you that we're all not just all one thing, kind, evil, mean, nice. But I think if we can be founded in a characteristic every day, if kindness can be our guiding light, it probably will make our life better, and probably those around us that influence and affect and lead. It'll make their lives a little bit better every day. If we can make our lives a little bit better every day, I think we can wake up one day and have an awesome life. So thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.